Welcome to another athlete story. I'm Julie Hatfield Still, president of Beyond the Game Alliance, a nonprofit organization taking a proactive and holistic approach to moving athletes from competitive sports to life and career beyond their game. It's such a critical transition and one that can be turbulent. There's a lot of unknown in this space, and it's way under discussed, which is exactly why we invite athletes who have navigated this time to share their stories. Our special guest today is one of our students at the Alliance who has successfully moved from sport to career. I'm so honored to introduce Sarah Round into the room. Sarah, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to dig in with you today. You had a really impressive journey in athletics. Would you mind sharing a little bit about your background in athletics, the sports you've played, the years you've played, some of your greatest accomplishments as an athlete?
Yeah, for sure. I'm originally from England, and started playing basketball maybe around 8, but I was a dual sport athlete, so I played football, soccer, and basketball at the same time until I was about 14. When I decided I needed to pick one or the other, and basketball was the one I went with. Um, and from that, I was lucky enough to um, move away from home at 16 to go to what we call an academy within England, and they have various ones up and down the country. And then from there, I got a scholarship to play Division Two basketball at Goldie Beacon College in Wilmington, Delaware. Um, and I also had the honor to represent my country at various points, so under 14, 16s, and 20s. I represented England and Great Britain at various tournaments. Which I think is probably my biggest accomplishment. I'm sure for many people, they would say representing their country is like the biggest thing you can do, and I completely agree. There's nothing like wearing your country across your chest. But also just achieving the scholarship that I got at the time, it came at like a really important time in my life. A lot had happened prior, and I never thought I'd even get one. So to have the scholarship that I did and then have the experience that I had, I think those are my biggest accomplishments is just being able to experience those kind of things. Not many people can say that.
Incredible. Yeah, wearing your country across your chest, that must be pretty surreal, Sarah.
Mm.
Um, Now, you just mentioned, and I kind of want to dig into this, and I'm curious. You mentioned you never thought you would play at this level. What was behind that? Why didn't you think you would play at this level?
Um, a lot of it came down to injury. Unfortunately, a lot of my career was just I couldn't stay healthy, and it wasn't anything that I did. It was just truly just luck. Like I was just an unlucky player and spent a lot of time in the training room. But at 17, I tore my ACL, and that set me back, not just physically but mentally. It's hard to come back from an injury like that. And it meant that prior to going to college, I had very little film. Whatever I had, I was scraping to get things together, and I did my best to get together a video that I could send to coaches, but I didn't have the help that maybe other people did because I wasn't playing. So some coaches probably were like, well, it's unlikely that you'll get anything. And to be honest, there were times where I think I believed that myself, that getting a scholarship was just like the last thing I was able to achieve. Um, but I scraped together what I could. I was emailing hundreds and hundreds of colleges across America just to find something. And I was lucky enough that Coach Burke at Goldie Beacon offered me a scholarship. So when that came, it was like completely surreal for me because it was not something I had imagined I would possibly be able to do after everything that I'd have to deal with before that. Um, it was just like a bit of a shock, I think. So I think that's the main thing. It was just injury. I just could not stay healthy.
Mm.
So,
Sarah, I hear this story so often in these interviews of, incredible athletes who are getting injured. So quite literally, you get a lot of reps in at actually kind of being in the sport and out of the sport, in the sport and out of the sport. How did you cope during those times where you were injured and you were kind of in and out of the game?
that's a good question. Um, I think it varied across my career. So my
Mhm.
first injury was when I was about 15. I had like a relatively minor injury, but I decided to play on it that ended up making it worse. And that's kind of what started it. So I had like one injury, then a year later, I rolled my ankle. A year after that, I tore my ACL. And then even when I went to college, and I was at like my prime fitness, I felt as healthy as I could have been. I still just could not get past like the aches and pains and everything else. So a lot of it mentally was quite demoralizing at times. My earlier injuries, for sure, I was ready to just give up because I just couldn't keep the physically having to go from like you play and then you have to take a break because of injury and then you play again and you take another break because of injury. Like that takes its toll on you and you're kind of like, what's the point? And then by the end of my career, my last injury, unfortunately, is what took me out of my sport completely. I needed another knee surgery, which I played on the injury and then had the knee surgery after the season, or I decided to have the surgery and just forego the season, which is the choice that I made. And the thought process behind it all, I mean, it went on for months, but it was definitely the best decision I made. And that my mindset in that moment was very much, I need to be the healthiest version of myself for my future self.
Mm.
So I I would have been more than happy to push through an injury and play my last season of college basketball and, had a great year, but physically I was just like on the ground. Like I could not function in daily life. Walking around was really hard, up and down stairs, things like that. And I made the decision at that point. I was like, if I can't get through my daily life, walking around and things like that, I need to fix it so that I can be like healthy for my future self.
Mm.
Um, and that was, I think, where my mindset completely changed regarding my sport.
Yeah. Wow, Sarah, so inspiring because, as athletes, the competitive play will eventually end, right? But when it ends because of injury, there's a whole nother level there that I find with athletes really challenges them. I imagine and I hear that that time was pretty turbulent for you. Um,
Hmm.
and you had to hang up the jersey maybe earlier than you expected and
Hmm.
start thinking forward towards your future. And by the way, I love that shift in mindset of preparing yourself for your better future self, not the self getting ready for the next game, right? Or that next competition. During that time, what helped you make that transition from injury to, not being able to play anymore in that space? And then we'll talk a little bit about when you moved from sport and being on team to career. But what helped you in that transition with injury?
Honestly, people.
Okay.
I couldn't have had a better group of people around me to get me through it. Um, my parents were obviously miles away. So I needed people, I had people at school, my coaches, my trainer, Erin, who has become one of the best people in my life. There's no doubt about that. And then just a great group of friends to get me through it. I think my team was just the best I could have had. Um, but also I began to think about like what I wanted to do post playing. Like, what do I want to do with my life? How do I want to help other people? And I think that's what really drove me into what I'm doing now.
Well, let's talk about that because we at the Alliance were really lucky to have you part of the Alliance program in that space of discovering what do I want to do now, right? Who am I now? What's next for me? How do you feel like being in the room at the Alliance helped you shift into this next season of your life?
Um, Listening to what other people are also doing was really helpful. Um, like being able to hear that like it's not just me, first of all, it's not just me going through it. Like there's a whole group of us that are, moving from sport to career and like we're not really sure how we're navigating it. Because at the time I felt quite lost. I didn't know what I was doing myself. And I was like, oh, there's actually other people that are kind of dealing with the same stuff I am. So that was really helpful. And then just like I think it helped give me some structure because we get a lot of tools, I think, as athletes about how you might be able to navigate these things. It's not really a conversation that you have with, with your coaches or things like that, because at the time you're just worried about playing and you just want to play college sports. So being a part of the alliance kind of gave me the structure that I needed to start thinking about, like, how might I get to where I want to get to? Like, I knew what I wanted to do, but how do I get there?
I love that. You said something I think is so true. So for so many of our athletes is kind of that it's isolation, it's loneliness, it's kind of feeling like you're the only one going through that, right?
Mhm.
And again, bringing back into the lens of the power of community, the power of like-minded community. What did you
Mhm.
find about the people in the room of the alliance that was different than maybe the people in your periphery, in your community, your friend groups? What about them helped you feel a little less alone in all of this?
Mhm. Um, Honestly, I think like one person in particular, Sydney Center, who I've stayed in contact with, and we're going to try and keep that as far apart as we are because she's in Hawaii, but we'll keep in contact as best as we can. We were kind of both going through we've had a break from sport and now we're kind of trying to get back into where like competing again, but we're kind of trying to navigate how we might do that. So having conversations about like the same things that someone else is going through and hearing it from their perspective was like really helpful for me because at the time, everyone around me, like I'm surrounded by people who play basketball all the time, and they have no idea how I was feeling. I could voice it, but that no one really truly knows how you feel about it. To have the conversations with someone else about what they're also going through, I think me providing them with help or support, whatever they needed, was also helping me give myself the support and help that I needed. Um, so I was telling them what I needed to hear, I think.
Ooh,
Um,
powerful.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Sarah, I mean, like we were just talking offline, you are playing again. You're going to be playing again. Share with us kind of that journey of getting back in the game, even post collegiately, and what you're going to be doing here in the future in the realm of playing competitively.
hmm So I had decided at my last knee surgery that I was just done with playing. I was like, I don't want to do it anymore. I can't keep going through the whole injury thing. And I was just, oh, I was so over it. So, um, last Christmas, I came home back to the UK for a couple of months and I got to watch my brothers play. And just being around the atmosphere of the sport, it just made me miss being a player and going to games and having that adrenaline of playing and all these things. And um, I think originally I decided I wasn't going to play because I was told that I wouldn't be able to, which
Mm.
was not the first time I had been told that. I'd been told that at various points in my career that like you're never going to play again and that kind of thing. And I was always one to like prove people wrong. So, but this one I was like, yeah, no, I'm kind of done. But when I was around it, I was maybe I could do it. Maybe I could, it would take a lot, but I could do it. Physically, I'm more than capable. I just have to get in the gym and like really um, get back to physical health. Mentally, it's going to take a little bit more, but I still think that I could do it. Um, so I decided that I was going to try. And I've really enjoyed just trying because I can just enjoy playing again, which is something I haven't been able to do for a long time. It's been about 2.5 years since I last played, and I'm finally enjoying going to practice again and, being around a team again and these kind of things, which I never thought I would feel again. So it's really special for me to have that. Um, so the way our leagues work in England is you have 3 tiers of women's leagues, and I'll be in the bottom tier, Division Two. Um, and I think that's just for me to get my confidence back. The people I'm around are great. I like the people who are potentially going to be on my team. The coach is great. Lots of support there. And fingers crossed we can get promoted by the end of the year. So that's the plan. But for me, I'm less worried about winning and losing. I just want to enjoy it. I just want to enjoy running around and having a good group of women, supportive, strong women around me again.
Yeah, so inspiring. I mean, Sarah, 2 years ago, not even thinking you'd, get back on the court, and now you're pursuing the game from a different lens of just enjoyment and play and hopefully health. and physical well-being through that process. I like to say this often on these is the game doesn't end, it just changes. But we've
Hmm.
got to be willing to change with it, right? We've got to be willing to shift our perspectives around it. And I love what you said about connecting with Sid, who I also did an interview with. So anybody watching who wants to see that interview, go check it out. But how when sometimes you take those pauses and you have time to actually connect with what the shift needs to look like. So there's power in the pause too, even
Hmm.
though it's hard as athletes to just take a step back and say, hey, okay, what am I now? Who am I now? And who do I want to be in the future? So kudos to you for that hard work, and truly the heavy lifting and all of this is the mental work. So always inspired by you, Sarah. As we wrap up, is there any advice or strategies you can share with some of our athletes who may, I mean, I think from your lens, you can really speak to that athlete that is in the game, out of the game, in the game, out of the game for because of injury, but also in the shift from sports to life beyond the game. Any insight for our student athletes?
Um, Honestly, building your team, like having that team around you is without a doubt the most important thing because if you're not surrounded by like-minded people, as you told us in within the alliance, Julie, that you need people who, resonate and align with your values. And that is without doubt the most important thing that I found. And having those people around me got me through some of my toughest times. Um, and then the other one that you talked to us about, which I still use, not quite as disciplined as I would like to, but I'll get back there eventually, but is my big three. I still use that. I'm still, really trying to focus on that. And I now carry a book with me everywhere I go because I wanted to get back into like mindful reading and things like that. Um, so those two things, strategies that you talked to us about within the Alliance were the things that I think I've kept with me most. Um, and those are things I will continue to carry them with me. The big three is just a habit, like getting into the habit of writing them down and making sure I follow them and those kind of things. But the team is making me become a bit more mindful about who I connect with.
Mm.
Um, and that I think is something I was doing even before I finished playing. I just wasn't aware that that's what I was doing.
Mm.
But the transition from sports to career is something I'm still navigating. I think it's probably something you do throughout your life. I don't think there's a point in time where you're like, yeah, this is exactly what I want to do. I'm going to do it for the rest of my life and like I'm going to be stuck doing it. Um, but one of the things I was able to do whilst at college was work at the same time I was playing, which isn't the case for everyone because time and schedules and things like that don't always work out. But I was lucky enough to have a job on campus in athletics kind of behind the scenes. So I was doing sports information. I was working with our sports information director, and that was really interesting for me because it gave me a like behind the scenes look, so to speak, of college sports and how things run and that kind of thing. And I think that helped me think about what I want to do. Um, I've always been interested in helping people and that kind of thing. So being able to help people in the back. Whilst I wasn't playing, I was still able to be around it. Um, I think that was really helpful for me. So, my sports information director, Derek, was a great supervisor for me, taught me a lot. And now I've been able to like move forward with that. Those skills that I learned are moving forward, and then skills I'm learning now in terms of like getting back to playing, but also I'm getting into coaching and all these other things. I've become a mental health first aider, so I'm able to now help like youth and within schools, outside of schools, using basketball to help them kind of improve their lives as well. Uh, so all of these things that like I did, but I didn't realize what they were. Um, Being within the alliance and just putting names to things has been really helpful. So I appreciate all the work you did with us because it came at a really good time for me.
Well, Sarah, you're so inspiring. And look, at the end of the day, someone can give you all of the information, but it's up to you to apply it and take it and run with it. And that is one thing as an individual, I think you do incredibly well. You're incredibly consistent and accountable to what you want. So kudos to you as well. And there's a bright future There's big things coming for you, Sarah. I truly believe that and believe that about so many of our athletes in the Alliance. So thank you for joining us for today. Thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for getting a little vulnerable with us in that space of that transition from sports to life beyond the game. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Well, if you are watching and you're looking to join our mission at Beyond the Game Alliance, there's 3 ways to do that. If you're an athletic director, leader, coach, or a parent of student athletes, junior year in high school and above through college, you can become an aligned partner and allow us to come and fully service your students in the capacity of education, coaching, and skill building. If you speak athlete and you have a specific skill set that our student athletes need, you can become an aligned provider, and let's get that conversation started. And lastly, we are always looking to support our athletes in greater capacities with resources and all of the things that they need to really amplify their game beyond the game. And corporate sponsors allow us to do that. If you're a business owner or someone who has a heart for these athletes and you just like to be a part of the mission to serve them, let's connect. You can learn more about ways to give at beyondthegamealliance.org. And if you want to stay in the loop, I'd also recommend subscribing to our YouTube channel and finding us on social media so you can see and hear all the incredible interviews from our athletes in the game and beyond, our providers and our partners. Thank you so much again for joining us today, Sarah. I look forward to speaking to you soon.
Thank you.